studying negative and positive experiences. And negative experiences all have this sound of trauma, humiliation. I was humiliated in school. The teacher ignored me. I was a bad student. The positive sounded way more interesting and way more varied. So with negative trauma, you can always say something bad happens. It's usually some humiliation in the context of education. It's humiliation. It's making you small. In positive experiences, the options are way more varied. And actually, in Masa Israeli, one of our conclusions was that each group has a guide. And the personal or the personality of this specific guide is utterly important. So you cannot create a blueprint and say, every guide will do the same, every teacher will do this. No, because it comes from a personal story that the guide shares when he speaks with the student. So Masa Israeli has as many faces as there are many guides in the Masa. Okay? And the important thing is to select the best guides. Those who have a real story to tell to young people as a model. Speaking of the guide, there are, in key experiences, I found that there are two main models. One is that the guide becomes a model for life. Students will say, I want to be like him, or I want to be like her. Okay? Some of the guides are females, you know. Okay? So students might say, I want to be like her. She walks the talk. She lives as the way she speaks. She's not fake. She's real. She's authentic. So the guide becomes a model. Another option, that the guide becomes what we call a mirror, that the students understand themselves by looking at the guide. He reflects to them how successful they are during the Masa. Okay? So there's a process of self-discovery that through the guide you learn to appreciate something about yourself that you didn't know or didn't appreciate before the Masa. So these two characteristics of the guides, being a mirror or being a model, is a crucial element for the Masa to succeed. And that means that the guides have to be authentic. There's no model that you can copy, and if I'll copy this guide, I'll be perfect. No, each guide has a unique Masa. Okay? And you cannot create a foolproof blueprint. Sure, phones. We usually do not allow phones during everybody speaks. Now there are different options. I say, you go first, you second, you third. Or it's more open-ended. If you have something to say, but everybody has to speak. Okay? So students cannot hide. They have to speak. They have to share their opinions. And the guide, or me as a professor, I don't have a cathedra. I don't stand above. I don't preach. I don't have the truth. In a circle, in an equal circle, we engaged in what you learned in Jewish studies, the dialogue. It's the dialogue. Comes from the Jewish tradition, indeed. The chevruta, the two learning the text together. There's no expert, you just debate. Okay? That Jewish tradition of learning comes into Zionism. and we debate, we opinionate, and we develop, this is part of the Israeli pedagogy, we develop the Israeli temperament of being opinionated. You never hide, you always express, this is what I think. Okay? So in a circle, in an equal circle, and I emphasize, equal circle, everybody speaks. That means that everyone looks at everyone. And students after, so most high schoolers are 16 years old when they go to Masa, sometimes 17 years old when they go to Masa. They already spent 2 years together, 3 years together. You know, I'm writing a book. I know the story as a text. But then I go to, איך קוראים לדוד וגוליית לעמק שם? עמק האלה. Okay, עמק האלה. I don't know how to translate it. But you go, the Ela Valley. And you actually step over the stones where David and Goliath made the combat. And if you actually come to the place where the excavation is, you can see the story, the text, and the place in your hand. And now for me, writing a book, being there, and the kids doing the excavations there, changes the entire story. Now this is not Bible studies. Now you tie between the place and the text. And that becomes meaningful. That becomes meaningful. So Masa is usually making a combination between text and the real life context, where the text was relevant or where the text historically took place. So kids come early in חוגי סיירות. So I came to talk to them about Masa Israeli and the difference between Masa Israeli and חוגי סיירות, what they do and what we do in Masa Israeli. And they do exciting, adventurous climbing over mountains. But I asked them, what's the meaning of this mountain? And it's just the adventure. And I say, but you can use the place. You can use. So I think Masa Israeli is doing a better job from a pedagogical point of view in that it treats the place, the mountains, the desert, as life, and answer a few questions. What do I want to achieve in my life? And these few hours of just being alone, surviving alone in a quiet to think about myself. Okay? Because usually we don't have time, or we don't allow or provide time for kids to think about their lives. So the tour usually begins with a reflective experience of who am I, what do I want to become. The tour then continues a day later, moving to the small group, sitting in groups. What is the meaning of my classroom, my friends? And the third day is the day of the community. I said learning through action. In the third day, they volunteer. Actually volunteer in different groups with needs that might be kids with autism, kindergartens with special needs, they might be house for old people, and they come for half a day to make fun for the kids, to help the people, or just to speak to people, old people, ill people. And they say as a consequence that now they appreciate that their situation is not the worst in Israel. There are more needy populations, and now they need to help others. So what astounded me is to learn that after the Masa, with the help of the high school, kids self-organize to volunteer in their community. A year after the Masa, they continue volunteering because they suddenly understood the importance of being the strong party who can help the needy part. And what was important is that the school helped the kids to organize those volunteering activities. In schools which did not help, that didn't take place. So the kids come after Masa with a lot of motivation. Schools have to encourage and channel that motivation, help them to organize, and then the community around the school benefits from the voluntary activities of high schoolers. And that takes place about 50% of the schools were able to use the voluntary motivation that the kids developed during the week to volunteer later. Yeah. We tend to be very aggressive, very vocal. I told you very opinionated, because everybody is equal. Each other, positive things. Okay? They have to say, I put a light on you, and I found out that, what do you say to the kids? How do they do it? How do you do it?
I choose you, right? No one else can choose him. Once I choose you, then it's your turn. So then you have to choose the next one. And then what ends up happening, naturally, in a group, is you have some people who are less popular.
Activity, usually it's during the evening, Friday night, right? Jerusalem, Friday evening tends to be quite a religious atmosphere or a unique atmosphere to it. And suddenly you're in a context where you usually just knocked each other during school, and suddenly you have to say something positive, and people say for Israeli culture. And it makes students appreciate how important it is to be positive rather than negative. School teachers, you know, they come with their classroom. Although there's the guide, he leads the way, but there's a teacher from the school. The teacher looks at him, and she learns from him how to do it. And every week we have an education class, and what the teacher...
Possible, how it works.
Orly, boy.
Yes.
So let me be...
Is it open also for non-Jewish people or for Arab students?
Yes.
So let me begin. Let me begin for the latter part of this question. And in Israel, there's only public schools. Okay? There are very, very few private schools. So it's all schools are public schools. Participating in Masa Israeli come from 2 or 4 tribes. This is the way our president defined Israel. We are 4 tribes.
5.
Now we have a 5th?
We are.
You are the 5th. Okay. So two of the 4, the secular and the national religious, ultra-Orthodox, it's a challenge because Zionist Masa and Israeli Palestinians. Again, it's a Zionist Masa, it's a challenge, but I think we know it's a in mixed schools, when you have Arab and Jewish students together and they go to the Masa together, we see how important that for them.
There's programs, right?
For people from outside of Israel.
Yes. Another section of the Masa.
The same DNA, the same process, but with the only the kids, students. When we speak about process I did here in Israel, I can take or learn how to use and do in my hometown. The same as my feeling to Israel, do I love Israel, the same when we speak about the state of Israel, do I have as Israel what is their responsibility about Israel or about the Jewish people or the nation of Israel and land of Israel? Yes, it is open to non-Jewish people. Here in Israel, we have some Arab schools. 100% of them are Arabs, Christians, and Muslims. The main question is this year we have a group from Germany, non-Jewish Germany, and we'll do it with a group from a school from Italy.
This is what I said. There is no one model. You accommodate the two for the group. So they come to meet the school before they go. They understand what the kids are, what the teachers are, and then they make adaptations. To be too big because of the, you see, this is too big. This is too big.
To make a meaningful process.
In order to make a meaningful process that everyone has time to speak, 20, 15 at times, depends.
And tomorrow we are going with the first groups of women, Masa Israeli, for 4 days. But for businessmen and
I am not asking exactly who did it and when, but was based on trial and error, or was based on the state-of-the-art knowledge about how groups function, what makes
two answers to your question.
Meaningful experience for
two answers. This is an ancient Masa. It goes to the days before the State of Israel. It is built on a tradition created by the Palmach in the 1930s. So they didn't come bare hands without any beginning. There is a tradition of a Masa in Israel. Who? החברה להגנת הטבע was using it. The Palmach was the creator of that. And it's a kind of a romantic expedition of self-discovery. But I would say that the concrete 6-day educational plan was developed here in Masa Israeli. Okay? So
taking into consideration the knowledge in social psychology.
Exactly. Positive psychology, yes. And there was a trial error. They developed the model along a few years with the assistance of the Ministry of Education. At the beginning, they were thinking about this process together. And I think after the first 3 or 4 years, they managed to create the blueprint that now we know on Friday evening at 8 o'clock in the evening, it will be this positive thing. Okay? So there is a model, and I think Masa Israeli, I told you about this other NGO that does tours in Israel. They didn't have the Israeli pedagogy. And I think Masa Israeli best understood the Israeli culture of egalitarianism, sitting in a circle, have everybody speak out, not hide behind your desk and chair. So from my point of view, Masa Israeli best identified Israeli culture, Israeli needs, and provided the Israeli pedagogy that best fits the place. Yeah.
Of someone who lives abroad.
Yeah.
Let's say, what should be the expectations or what should be the goal that we students, 16 years old, which in my case would have
I would ask you, why do you want to send them here? You didn't hear me. Why do I would say, what can you do in Mexico? What can you do in Brazil? What can you do in Ukraine to do a meaningful tool that builds on ideas from Masa Israeli, but you cannot fly all kids here. So how can you create an equivalent experience on location? What would be those sacred places that, okay, Yad Vashem only one, but can you find alternatives of memorials of the Jewish people in other places that you can use as equivalent and then copy the activity that we do here? So I think the practice of Masa, of walking away, of being alone, of being challenged physically, of being challenged socially in the social group, of having a big meaning of why I am here at the age of 16, why am I here? That can be used anywhere. I gave a talk in China, and I asked them, what would be the Chinese Masa? And they were thrilled with the idea. How can we create a tool with the meaning of the Han community, Han tradition in China? And so I challenge you. Obviously, we want all Jews to come and do Masa Israeli. There's no question.
No, but what we're saying is that a similar program could be translated to Brazil, to Mexico, to solve social problems there.
Yes, exactly. I think that's the challenge. And I think they found a practice. Maybe you'll have to accommodate some of the elements. Say, this is not fitting our culture. We need to do something different. But I think the challenge is
It's going to help Brazilians get better.
Здесь люди, которые работают с детьми, с молодежью.
Here are sitting people who work with children, used to work with children.
И наверняка вы сталкиваетесь с ситуацией, когда у вас в ваших группах находятся дети с очень высоким протестным потенциалом.
And when you work with this, we want a special guide and this negative feedback from them. We can get the negative, how do you work moments.
Я не говорю здесь об экстремизме, потому что мы все слышали, что чисто о психологических, я говорю чисто о психологических проблемах. Как вы их решаете? Если у вас...
What are the psychological problems? How can you solve them?
Okay, so this is indeed not the usual program of Masa Israeli, but I can tell you that there are programs, similar programs, taking kids at risk, drug problems, violence problems, for time in the desert. A kind of survival tool where they have to be with each other for a few days, and they undergo a psychological process of self-discovery and the kind of healing that when they come back from those intensive days, being alone or in small groups, they become normative again. So we have, in Israel, we have an educational framework that is called Kfarei Noar, youth villages. So it's mostly for kids at risk, violence at home, drugs, criminal records in the police. They have this week in the desert. So kids who make a lot of troubles, they send them for a week in the desert. If you have questions, you can always email me.